yeah, you should work hard and try and be the best you can be. But I think so many people have this eye on the prize of, oh, I got to get a D1 scholarship. And if I don't get that, you're going to spend a lot more money trying to get there than you're going to get out of it when you do get there. So, and that's fine if you're, but understand that and make it fun.
Welcome to Building a Champion. We are joined today by Jacque Tevis-Butler, the head women's soccer coach at Millard West High School. Thank you for joining us, Jacque. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Jordan.
Well, full disclosure, Jacque was my high school soccer coach. Loved her. Had a great time with her. Honestly, one of the best experiences ever.
How many championships?
Yeah.
Did you have?
Five state championships. Yeah.
Amazing.
And Jacque, you've been the coach there at Millard West for how long now?
Oh boy, you're gonna date me. I'll be going into my 28th year as the head coach. But West has been open. This is our 30th year, and I was the JV coach there for the first 2 years. This is actually my 33rd year of teaching and coaching. Because the previous 3 years, I started at my alma mater as a volunteer at Millard North.
What initially drew you to coaching high school soccer, specifically at Millard West?
Well, just overall coaching. So I'm so dated. I graduated from high school in 1988, and I was a good soccer player, but the opportunities to play, they weren't there. I could have gone to a couple of small schools in the middle of nowhere, and that just wasn't no. So I wanted to go to Creighton. And oddly, when I started there, they didn't have a soccer team for women. They had suspended it for a few years. I think it was my sophomore year was when they brought it back. And you could do tryouts. And I was out of the game. And I'm like, I just can't swing that. But I really missed it. So when I started student teaching, my sister was actually a player at Millard North at the time. And she asked me if I would come and do it. And I'm like, I can't. It's just too much. I can't student teach and work and do, still be a student. But when the soccer season came up the following year, after I got hired, I missed it. I missed playing. I missed being competitive. And, I think what drew me to it as well was just the connections that I had that you could develop in, extracurricular activities. So that's really how I got started. And then when West opened, I wanted to go there. I wanted to start a new school. I wanted to start a new program. And I wanted to teach in the block schedule was a big part of it. But the thrill athletically of starting new traditions really drew me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're talking building champions here. What year did you win you mentioned you've had a total of 5. What year was your first state championship?
Well, you remember, Jordan. That was your senior year, 2007.
It sure was.
Yeah.
Can you share what that experience was like for you to finally clinch that victory?
Oh, it was such a process because, back then, the, soccer here in the States is really a suburban sport. So I think I was really pretty naive when I went to West, and I thought, oh, this will be easy. It'll take a couple of years and we'll start getting the athletes. And I was quickly introduced to how difficult of a job it was. Thank goodness, the first 2 years, Tom Mosser was our head coach, and he really showed me a lot of the things that I carried with me. And that number one was culture. And those the first 2 years, I think we had 28 players total in the program. I was trying to run a JV and a varsity team. So I was the JV coach, and oftentimes I would have practice with 6 or 7 kids and then run to the varsity game. It was crazy. So, and we got killed all the time, just absolutely massacred, which was very frustrating to me. But when Tom stepped down, it kind of continued that first year. I think we were 4-12, but I think we won those 4 games were equal to the number of games, maybe more, than we had won the previous 2 years. The next year we had, I believe, a winning record, and it just slowly started to build. I started to get my feet under myself a little bit better, had a better idea of what I was doing on and off the field. And we were really making some strides. And your senior year, that was just unbelievable, as you can remember. So many defining moments for that team. And quite frankly, Jordan, you were like the biggest reason. You sort of exemplified everything that we wanted our players and our program to be about. You remember back then they had those "What Would Jesus Do?" And I remember one day the assistant coach looked to me and he goes, "I think that means what would Jordan do?" And we shoot that way. That's how competitive you were. And, I remember specifically you were, that team, we lost to Millard South in the regular season. And we were kind of, just sort of stumbling a little bit. And I remember how distraught you and I think it was Lindsay were just bawling after the game. And that was really a turning point. I think we all came back together and figured out that, yeah, we could do this. And you recall the districts that year where we knocked Marion out of the tournament. And we beat Millard South first, so that was great. And then, going through the state tournament and beating Millard North in the semifinal by a goal. And then West Side in the shootout, which just unbelievable. Great memories.
What would you say was the moment that you realized your team had the potential to win that first state championship?
I think it was you're asking me, these are a long time ago. But I remember feeling like we have a real shot during the preseason. Just because we had a nice mix of older and younger. We had great leadership. You and your fellow seniors were leading the way. You were very hungry. You were all very much sort of laser focused on that. Like you just wouldn't be denied. And then throughout the year when we figured out, because we were always a pretty good defensive team, but we added a few offensive pieces, as you recall, and we could score. And we could score in a lot of different ways. And although those scorers were very young, and that was kind of the scary part, but it was early. It was early.
How would you say that you foster a championship mindset within a team that has, those diverse skills and personalities like you mentioned?
That is... Jordan, I wish you could come play for me now because I think you will see that it's so different. What I thought I was doing then pales to what we have to do now. This high school sport and girls soccer in particular is so different than when you played. It is very intentional. It's year-round now in some capacity. Even right now, this is kind of I don't really do anything with them, but I am. We'll have meetings once a month, and I'm just sort of releasing them to their club team because this is their big time. But at our meetings now, we're doing big sisters, little sisters. We have a defined culture with the acronym of Let's Go, which sort of states our values. Our big sisters are going to be, onboarding our incoming players. We'll have, before the season even starts, I'm going to bring in Kevin Cush to talk about team building, positive. We're trying to lay the foundation very early. I'm even, now and today, it doesn't even start in high school. It starts with middle school. With our school open, it opens us up to recruiting. And I will never, I'm not going to be that person that goes out and tries to recruit an 11, 12, or 13-year-old. But I'm going to be very active in keeping those kids in our feeder school coming to West. So like when I have Kevin Cush come in and work with our team, I'm going to invite middle school girls to come and be a part of our culture. So everything is purposeful. It's focused on, our culture of let's go. And it's centered around our older kids, our juniors and seniors, helping to onboard the younger players.
That is quite a difference.
It's quite, yeah, there's a lot to it, it's a lot, yeah. And, even the things that aren't necessarily, I'm thinking more of like the team building, but we do, like, let's just say a cycle for a year. So our season starts in late February, early March. Okay, so we used to do, in January, we get together and we start doing preseason conditioning. That's even evolved to include weightlifting and just a ton of different things, a lot of agility work, speed work, footwork. But we go through the normal season, but then we get about a 2-week break. Now in the summer, we're going the whole time. So we'll meet 3 or 4 times a week for weightlifting, agility, fitness, and then we also do a league in the summer, which we never used to do that. Then when the school year starts, that's where I kind of leave them alone, and then in late October, we start, okay, now we're playing indoor. We're starting to live together again. So it's just a complete cycle. Never ends.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced as a coach, and how have you overcome them?
Trying to be a mom and a coach. That's... and being just generally a woman in a male-dominated field. I have a lot to say about that. But sport is still a culture that it's one of the few areas, even though we have more and more girls and women involved, it's still the culture of athletics, and I'm talking more from the administrative side, is still heavily male-dominated. And women have a harder time integrating through that. And as a consequence, you feel very isolated. And I have throughout my career, I was one of the few people, I think few women that are in it this long, that I just kind of let it go. Nowadays, and I think Jordan I spoke to, I'm starting an organization to try and support women in coaching and try and break down those barriers. But it's that plus the combination of motherhood. And I almost quit about, I think it was my 3rd year as a head coach. I came home from the district game we had lost, and my husband was sitting out in the driveway with the neighbors, and I slammed the door, and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. My daughter was 3 at the time, and I'm like, I'm spending all this time away from home, and we didn't win like I wanted to. I was so focused on that. And he was like, whoa, wait. And I was lucky that I had a very supportive group to help me. My parents helped me with the kids, and not everybody has that. Right. So you end up feeling very guilty. But, one of my favorite pictures from that 2007 is, if you recall, there's the picture of you guys getting the trophy and me standing off to the side with my kids, who were toddlers then. By the way, that little one, he's going to be 20 tomorrow, so that little guy, the youngest one. And now in retrospect too, like how proud my kids are of me, and that picture sort of represents that the most. But they talk about it all the time. It's very important to them that I'm a coach, and they know that I missed a lot, but they know that when I was there, I was always there, 100% for them.
Love that. Can you walk us through your preparation for a championship game?
The day of the game? Like the game, the big game?
The game. Yeah, leading up to it. How do you pull off 5 championships?
Well, the whole year is you're preparing for it. So I think the big mistake that people make is they forget that everything that you've done is all preparation for that. Like, our goals will never change. Our goal ultimately every year on the field is to win a state championship. And so you do everything to prepare for that. And so when you get to that big game, it's a celebration. It's not, you're a little more nervous, but you got to remember this is just soccer. And you've been doing it all year. You've been doing it for much of your life. And now you get to do it on a stage where people finally get to see it because it's such an event here in Nebraska. They do such a wonderful job with that tournament. And for us, I think the girls see the confidence that I have in them and the expectation that, nothing changes. This is just a game.
What advice
I
would
don't know.
you
It'd be
give to a
interesting
young...
to ask you, Jordan, how you felt before that.
Before the game?
Yeah.
It was not just a game. That was not a normal game to me. That was a big game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably led to some of my errors in the game, but thankfully others stepped up. What advice would you give to a young athlete aspiring to play soccer at a competitive level?
This is a hard one. Sometimes I worry about who's really motivated to play the game. Is it mom and dad and you're trying to live up to what mom and dad want you to live up to? Or is this something you truly want to do? And I think most kids, when they get into sport, I was looking at my granddaughter at her little birthday party yesterday, just two, and the joy she has of kicking a ball and throwing a ball, it is just the best thing in the world. Anything that's physically active, she is just so engaged in it. And if you don't love the game like that, it's going to be hard. And you have to love everything about it. But if you do love it, I think the first thing you need to do, and this really isn't for the kids, it's for the parents, especially those first coaches you have, be very cautious of who you get. Who is the game about? Who is it for? Is it for your ego? Is it for, the coach's ego? Or is it to provide an opportunity to let kids have fun? Ultimately, it should be fun. And you want to teach them things. You want to teach them how to work hard. But it always amazed me when I was in the club world. At the age I would see, young, even 4 years old, some of the behaviors from coaches and parents for 4-year-old, 5-year-old soccer. And I thought, well, what a way to zap the love out of it, because then it becomes, it's fear driven. And that's not what it should be. And be realistic, you should work hard and try and be the best you can be. But I think so many people have this eye on the prize of, I got to get a D1 scholarship. And if I don't get that, you're going to spend a lot more money trying to get there than you're going to get out of it when you do get there. So, and that's fine if you're, but understand that and make it fun. Right. I think athletes, it's a hidden secret. A lot of athletes have really serious mental health issues, and I think a lot of it comes from those pressures. And I think we need to be, as the adults in the equation, we need to be very concerned about that.
What do you think are some things? Sure. Yeah. What do you think are some things that should be done to protect mental health and to build athletes to try and put an end or mitigate it as much as possible?
Well, one, I think, adults, we need to get a grip. This sport is fun. Yes, there are so many benefits you reap that catapult you to other levels. There's so many things that are positive about it, just looking at the statistics of people in the business world or, in any field. 90% of the women in Congress, I think, played sports when they were younger, and I'm, there's a correlation also of successful people, male or female. So I think, you always need to remember that those benefits are there, but they're not going to be there if you make this a fear-based thing, that you're losing out. So number one of the challenges is to get the adults back in line with remembering this is fun. This is not necessarily an investment that is going to lead to a college scholarship or a professional career.
Okay.
The benefits are going to be all those extra things that go along with it. So just keep that in perspective for the majority of athletes. Now, there's few that will go on to those levels, but that's not where your money's really going. And when they get to, I think you start teaching positive mental health at a very young age. You teach kids how to make a mistake in a fishbowl, and when you're 5, the fishbowl is, mom and dad and my brothers and sisters and grandma and grandpa are there and they watch me make a mistake, or I miss the shot, or I don't make the save. And the simple message, I just love watching you play, and keeping not a mindset that is one on, you have to have perfection. Progress is what you stress, and keeping it fun has to be fun.
Looking back on your career so far, what would you say you're most proud of?
The longevity. And don't get me wrong, those championships and winning big games, those are awesome. But I'll give you an example. I'm more proud of when I see this. Like, I see people like you who played for me, having a successful career, a family, and knowing that, like, I played a small part in that. But a more tangible example was, so our seniors last year, they were the group after COVID, right? So we lost our 2020 year, and that team was going to be pretty darn good. And it was another shot for us to figure out how to win 2 in a row. We haven't been able to do that. But so when we started that 21 year, it was that the freshman group was the largest group, talented kids, but we only had 2 players on our 2021 team who even wore a uniform in 2019 when we had won our last state championship. And one of them played, and she hardly played. So I was like, oh boy, talk about culture building. We lost so much with that. And that's our senior group from this past year. They, oh my goodness, they're great kids, but they figured out ways to lose I've never seen. And it was just rough. I mean, we invented it, and we talk about it now. So we as coaches, we were intentional trying to teach them how to, because they're wearing the weight of a 2019 state championship, what they had absolutely zero to do with, other than they were maybe at the game cheering us, and they have no clue how to do it. They have no role models. So we were very intentional that year, trying to teach them the things that were Millard West soccer and how to be strong mentally, in addition to pick up the pace of the game, because here we are, a bunch of freshmen out with a bunch of seniors. And each year they got progressively better. But what I'm most proud of was last year, we had 3 players play in the All-Star game, the Special Olympics Nebraska game over at Scott. And yeah, so those 3 players, I went and watched them, and they were the best teammates on the field. Like one of my goalkeepers, she was one. She learned, and they don't practice for that event, right? And they know a lot of the other kids. But I was more proud of watching how they were leading the side they were playing for. They knew everybody's name on their team. They were talking to them. I mean, it was rather noticeable who the best leaders were. And I know that came from a lot of the things that we had done with them. And so it's things like that that make me really proud of what I've done.
What advice would you have to another coach that's just getting started and maybe looking to build a championship program like the one that you have?
Oh, that's a hard one too. Number one, know your why. And if your why is you just like to win, this is probably not the place for you to be. Your why, I hope, has something to do with building and growing people and helping them reach their potential. Know your values, stick to your values. Understand that, especially if you're a head coach in a high school program now, there's tons of things that you're going to deal with. Rhonda Revelle recommended doing this. I think that's great because we always talk about everything on your plate. She said, get a paper plate and write all the things on that paper plate that you have to do, and then just put it aside. And a day or two later, come back to it and rip away everything that really doesn't matter. And then what you're left with is what you focus on. So you have to figure out what these are the 2 or 3 things that I really have to be super intentional about addressing on a daily basis. And I thought that was a great piece of advice. And understand the job is going to change and evolve, and you have to have a growth mindset. You have to try and get better. And I think the place that you can always get better is how you relate to your kids. Kids are no different today than they were when you played. They want to be loved, they want to feel safe, and they want to have fun. And if you can't provide those basic things, probably not the job for you. I mean, if you're just in it to, I'm going to win 500 games, I'm going to get a bunch of rings, you're going to have a hard time.
What is it like seeing the emotions from your players when they do manage that success and seeing all their hard work actually pay off?
It's overwhelming. It's really overwhelming. Yeah, I've got sort of a hard exterior, as you know, Jordan, and those are the few times where, like, I get a tear in my eye on the field. You know, there's 2 reasons. One is when you reach the success that you've been working for, but 2 is the other when you say goodbye to your seniors after that last game. A little easier to do after you win a championship, but it's watching them fulfill and achieve everything that they've worked for it's amazing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jacque. This has been Building a Champion, brought to you by Pro Track and Tennis, and we'll see you next time.